Aloha, everyone. And as Purnima has said, welcome to Class 5 of Astrology for the New Age of Aquarius, based upon this book right here, The Zodiac, Keys to Man and to the Universe. And this was given through the teachings of Omraam Aïvanhov. And you can see through the flyers and the informations that you'll see on the YouTubes and the recordings that we're doing. You can get the contact. And before we begin, I would like to acknowledge, of course, Purnima and Susan for hosting this Zoom. And I'd also like to acknowledge the teachings of Omraam Aïvanhov that he has given for over 50 years and dedicated his whole life to bringing forth these currents of the Age of Aquarius. Obviously, he is not the only one. And I'd like to acknowledge all the beings that have selflessly continued to become these containers and forming this chalice, this grail, in order for the consciousness to receive these currents of the Age of Aquarius, because these next three classes will be really dedicated to entering into more deeply what is this current of the Age of Aquarius? How can we bring this current more into our lives? How can we contribute to this current on a planetary basis? And what are the sole purposes that we've come into to edify this extraordinary age that we're entering into, the Age of Aquarius? So we're going to, little by little, construct a concrete, a real image within ourselves in which we can refer to little by little. So I would like now to start with this connection and allow ourselves to open to these currents coming through this portal of Aquarius. Allowing ourselves to open our hearts, open our minds, open our entire being to receive this extraordinary energy that's now bathing us continually. And we're inviting all our cells to enter into a vibration, an attunement with these energies. Understanding that that attunement, that vibration, that state of resonance is creating an extraordinary energy that in the Vedic teachings, they call this the Shakti, this force, this power. And we're allowing this power to align within our cells. Every cell being filled with this energy being poured forth through this extraordinary portal of Aquarius. And we're feeling in that this connection between our third eye and our hearts. And as this connection happens and we're feeling these energies invigorating, electrifying, magnetizing all our cells, we're feeling this connection to each one that's now doing this same work. Those present on this class and those everywhere on earth that are consciously opening to this current and allowing their cells to enter into a higher state of consciousness, for recognizing that each cell is a conscious living being. And as we're feeling this state of unified consciousness and alignment within ourselves, and we're feeling this connection with these consciousnesses that are doing the same work within their selves, we're feeling this invigoration, this higher state of amplification all through Earth. And we're realizing that the planet Earth, our mother Gaia, also is receiving a higher state of consciousness. And that showers upon all of us, and it's invigorating, it's supporting our daily lives continually. And as we're feeling ourselves as a part of this planetary awakening coming through this new age of Aquarius, we're seeing that the entire solar system is participating in this. There is an entire renewal that's going on, an uplifting on a universal level. And we're feeling this raising of our vibrations, these amplifications. And as we're seeing this portal through our mind's eye, and we're feeling these energies through our hearts, and we're expanding into this universal awareness, it brings us into this center in which we see and we feel how this life originates. And as we stay within, we remain within this current of origin, we see this birth of the new age of Aquarius. Thank you. Thank you. So, in order to enter more deeply into the Age of Aquarius and how this is affecting our personal lives, our collective life, and our planetary lives, it would be good to understand now the relationship between planetary resonance. So we call this aspects. You see, so I prefer the name planetary resonance because I love referring to this image that Omraam Aïvanhov gave to us. It's not only an image, it's a reality that the planets, they sing. That there's a choir of angels within each planet that's offering its harmonies to support our evolution, to participate on a personal, collective, and planetary level. And so last week we saw that. We saw how on a personal, collective, and planetary level, through Venus, Mercury, and the Moon, there's a higher state of resonance between this other triangle on a universal level of Neptune, Uranus, and Saturn. And we went through these vibrations. So Purnima, could you put up the first diagram? We're going to look at what is the base in our earthly lives. What is the base in our earthly lives for understanding planetary resonance? And I really like to honor, of course, Greta for coming together with this diagram, because the best way we can understand these resonances is understanding the different phases of the moon. The moon for us is the closest universal force and energy. Remember, you could say it's the region of all our guardian angels. So all the choir of angelic beings that have guided us, that have been with us, is working through these different phases of the moon. So we have a waxing moon and we have a waning moon. So cultures, civilizations have worked with this forever. It's until this modern era that humanity has finally entered into this period that's known in the Vedic tradition of Kali Yuga. So this modern area that spans a time, let's say, of 3,000, 3,200 years, 3,400 years, for the time period of our soul, that's nothing, absolutely nothing. For our earthly lives, it's huge. So as we look at this and we start entering in, and all these diagrams can be found, on the website soulessenceastrology.org. They're all there. You can see how there's certain qualities that are offered to us during a waxing moon period, and during waning moon period, there's another work that's being done. So during the waxing moon period, so the moon does its waxing period in roughly 14 and a half days. That's going through these different phases that are illustrating planetary resonance. You can see that on the diagram. You have all the planetary resonance are shown within these different phases of the moon. So during the waxing period, we can see that we're receiving the possibility to express our individual lives. And in order to do that, we need an effort. We need to supply in energy. So when we look at that, this first energy of expression in astrological terms, it's called a sextile. The 60-degree angle, the base of a hexagram, the base of this, in the Judeo-Christian, the Star of David, or the flower of life that's accompanied this symbol that has been on the pyramids. It's been with humanity since the dawn of our awakening. Why? Because it represents, they've done a simulation of the orbit and the retrogradation of this back and forth of Venus. It traces a flower of life in its orbit, in this retrograde movement seen from the Earth. Can you imagine? So our planetary guides, this is what they're offering us. They're offering us to express ourselves in harmony with universal forces. This is the essence of a sextile. So when we see these relationships in our charts, if we look at our mandala of consciousness, which I call an astrological chart, it's allowing us to enter in. You're going to see how this expression, it has different energies to it if it's in a waxing moon or if it's in a waning moon. They're not the same. And so it's the same relationship between all the planets. So the relationship between the sun and the moon, these two divine principles, masculine and feminine, they're showing us the same relationship between all the planets. So the second major planetary resonance or astrological aspect is the square. Oh, the square is a bad aspect. Oh, if you have squares, can you imagine? Yes, but the squares are there so we can climb, we can raise. It's assisting our personal wills so we can have efforts. So we're going to see that in this waxing moon period, we have to bring our energies into our lives. And the relationships, the planetary resonance of a square, are assisting us in that. Everything is is to support life. Creation is there to support life. So since this major separation of human consciousness has gone on, and what has been the aspect of this major separation is our total identification with our physicality, our physical bodies. So when our physical bodies are no longer there, we cease to exist. Our existence is no more. So there's a constant battle between life and death in everything, in everything. All our institutions are based upon that. All our education is impregnated with that. Our major cultural ways of organizing are based on this separation that life and death are adversaries. Good and evil are adversaries. So in this, we're realizing that all these different aspects, our life is creation, is the relationship that we live all the time. This waxing and waning moon is giving us an opportunity to express and feel these planetary resonances within our specific soul purpose and contribute our specific soul purpose within a collective one, in our, you could say, soul groups, in other words, the groups of people that we're called to come into contact with, and on a planetary level, in other words, people that we'll never meet. Yet our work, either on a personal or collective level, is with them. It's in harmony with them. So this square is a very, very, very important point. This is our first step in bringing our energies into raising our consciousness. And of course, this enters into the cross of our destiny. And remember, 2 weeks ago when we went very deep into these 3 different crosses. The same cross that we're looking at in our mandala of consciousness, our astrological chart, the energetics and our soul evolution can be shown in 3 different ways: through a cross of necessity, a cross of liberty, or a cross of providence. And we went through all that, and we can listen once again to those classes to really understand and find out, where am I at in that? In certain domains, we might be in necessity. We're preoccupied with nourishing ourselves and finding shelter. Preoccupied with that. That's our whole thing. And then as we enter into other energies, we see that there are other things going on, and we have more freedom, we have more mobility. We can see that we have other things that need to be nourished and that need to find shelter within us. So the next major planetary resonance is the trigon. So now we're at the triangle. Extremely important, because this triangle is talking about not only expressing ourselves, but what do we want to bring forth as far as our creative potential. So an equilateral triangle has the capacity to radiate and bring forth the 7 colors. So from this unified field of consciousness, as we create within ourselves an equilateral triangle, we have the capacity to bring into our creative potential all of the colors of the rainbow. In other words, we have access to all these soul qualities. So as you look within your astrological chart, your mandala of consciousness, and you see a trigon, it's asking to see, okay, where is my creative potential at? And how can I align that with this triangle within me? And what is the triangle within me? It's my mind, my heart, and my will. You see? My intellect, you see? My heart, my feelings, and my actions. And we can look at that in many different ways, this Trinity. So the trigon is bringing to us the science of triangles. And within this science of triangles, we're going to enter into that more deeply. There is this marriage between the hexagon, the sextile, and the trigon. So we're going to see the marriage of these two triangles to create this flower of life, the Star of David, a triangle of evolution, and a triangle of involution. So this aspect that everyone has a trigon in their chart, is aligning us with that. And of course, once again, in the waxing moon, we're just with the waxing moon now, these trigons, this is what they're bringing forth, our creative potential. And now we enter into this opposition, once again, opposition, influenced by this duality of separation, that things are working against one another. Yet nature is showing us, no, it's a full moon. It's actually the period of realization, of manifestation, that is the most powerful. And to be able to do that, we need to be able to balance and align our forces and energies within us. But that's the period that we've started from this conjunction, this new moon, this new beginning. It's been a 14-day period in which our energies are resonating one in another to create this possibility of realization, of manifestation. So here we see the waxing moon period. And, I was present during the lectures of Omraam Aïvanhov when he gave a possibility for the disciples, if they chose to work with these two periods. So during the waxing moon period, whenever they felt it, whether it would be the beginning of the day or the end of the day, to align themselves with the energies and ask for the accomplishment, the realization of this golden age, and ask for these energies within themselves, each one of ourselves, the way we started this class today, be amplified, be electrified, be magnetized to participate in this realization. So he took it on a personal level. He gave it a collective level, that our work together with one another becomes unified towards this, and a planetary level, that we participate on a planetary level. And he said we can do this each day during this waxing moon period. Well, this is what the work is going on in every planetary resonance. Every planetary aspect is doing this same work. So I'll go through the moon cycle, and then we'll look at the different other cycles of the planets, understanding that these are working on different levels, different rhythms. It's an extraordinary orchestra. That's why they call it the Symphony of the Spheres. And as we can open up our consciousnesses to hear it, to feel it, to be in harmony with it, our lives change, absolutely change. So I absolutely recommend to everyone to start paying attention to these phases of the moon. And if you can, just pay particular attention to 4 of those phases: the new moon, the first quarter, the full moon, and the third quarter. See and feel the different energies. And we'll get into how all these planetary resonance change in relationship to the elliptical orbit that's going on, that is caused by the movement of the Earth around the sun. So now we have a third element. And remember, we at the beginning of the classes, the first class, we shared that for Omraam World, he said the most important thing in astrology is the relationship between the sun, the moon, and the earth. This trinity. This is the most important. We saw, okay, the sun's very easy, the moon, very easy, but what is the earth? And we saw that this was our cross of destiny, this movement, this turning of the earth on its axis, and this tilt is creating a change in the elliptical orbit and the orb, the height in which the relationship is taking place for all our perceptions here in our incarnation, and we'll get into that. So once we're at this realization, we're seeing that something changes, even though there's a difference that takes place. You see, there's a difference when suddenly a waning moon comes in. There's something different, even though the degrees are the same in the planetary aspects. The movement is always counterclockwise. And so instead of saying, oh, it's 6 degrees, no, this first relationship that we're looking at is one at 240 degrees. You see? That's our first one. And suddenly we enter into a trigon, you see, in relationship to the other ones. So instead of starting with a sextile, we're starting with a trigon because we're moving in the same direction. And it's very significant because at that time, there's an extraordinary force of transformation that takes place. We need to transform. This creative energy is transforming our lives. So this creative potential has come into a realization. And now there's a whole nother work that's taking place. And from this transformation, there's an acceptation that takes place. We accept that things change. We can't hold on to what we've manifested and realize. We know that everything in life changes, everything. And through that accepting, there's a surrender. And that surrender is that square that's up at top at 270 degrees. We're completely letting go. And so for humanity, right now in this consciousness, this is the period that all humanity is in. They're letting go of an age of Pisces, and we're entering into a new age of Aquarius. So everything that was based upon this age of Pisces has accomplished itself. And now we're letting go, we're surrendering it and entering into a new current. Well, this shows up in our lives also. This is an extraordinary work that we're doing. So, you look at one of the major disorders that's happening in humanity is the inability to go to sleep. Isn't that extraordinary? A process so natural, so amazing, that this process of going to sleep and allowing ourselves to voyage and travel and learn within this immensity of the universe has now become a struggle. This idea of surrender, this desire to hold on so much to our physicality. So as we practice this through these different phases of the moon, we're accompanying our soul in a very natural process. Absolutely, that there's this surrender and letting go. And then we enter finally into this sextile at 300 degrees. And this sextile, what is it doing? It's allowing us to integrate, bring into us, so that when we leave our physical bodies, we'll be able to take this with us for our next lifetime or our next new moon. You see, we're building upon that. So exactly how this energy of expression, it transforms into an energy of integration. Exactly how this effort transforms into surrender. Exactly how this creative potential, it transforms into transformation and acceptation. So these are the phases of the moon, and you know, as future astrologers, in other words, the study of astrolight, and why are we doing this? To regain our memory. And why do we need to regain our soul memory? So we can be more of ourselves here on earth. That's why we're doing it. It's not to remember our story. We have enough stories here in our lives. It's to become more of who we are. So, are these memories uniquely memories of our earthly incarnations? Of course not. There are other dimensional realities in which we can also remember, yet the state of planetary resonance will remain. You see? The music of the spheres remains. And so this is what I encourage each one to do. And, you know, as you reread and read this little tiny book, you'll see within these examples that Aïvanhov is giving through astrology, you're going to see that these are extraordinary processes that he's doing. Extraordinary processes. He's enabling us to penetrate more deeply into these natural creative life cycles. So start with this. And so he gave also a formula for this waning moon period, asking that we let go, we surrender anything that's not in harmony with this highest vibration of God, Goddess, of creation. Let it go. Surrender. Let it be transformed. And so these two periods were known. All agriculture activities were done through that, and they're still being done. You see? Yet human consciousness and its desire to edify everything outside of itself thought it could do a better job than creation. And you can see the big fat mess we're in. So as we come back into these natural rhythms within ourselves, within our relationship with others, in our relationship with the universe around us, we're going to understand that sometimes in our relationship with others, there's a waxing moon period. Sometimes it's a waning moon period. Sometimes the other person is showing us, they're mirroring to us, just like the moon, what we need to surrender, what we need to let go, what we need to transform, what we need to accept. Is that bad? It becomes difficult for us when we don't accept it. That's when the difficulty comes in. Yet they're natural processes. And as we enter in and we see that in our relationships there's waxing and waning periods of the moon, even if they don't correspond to the actual physical waxing and moon periods, we start realizing that, and we can start harmonizing ourselves within these periods. It's absolutely fantastic. So this is the basis of all planetary resonance. So we're going to take a big jump forward now, and we're going to enter into the axis of destiny to kind of understand them. Omraam Aïvanhov spent a great deal of time in his book on understanding these axes, bringing through examples of them. I don't need to repeat them. Go back into it, study, look at your mandala of consciousness, and especially feel what they awaken within you. It's the most important thing, our feelings. The most important thing. Because as we give a space for our feelings, you're going to see that our mind relaxes. And our mind starts penetrating and understanding what we call mysteries. It starts bringing in to relationship exactly what we're looking at with this diagram. Resonances through our feelings, through this space that we're developing in our heart. So isn't this extraordinary? Look at that. Absolutely extraordinary. So I summarized a little bit what Omraam presented in his book, very classic in the science of astrology, giving perhaps another twist to this, showing that in our first axis of destiny that's between Aries and Libra, that this is determining with relationship. We're looking at relationships with ourselves and relationship with others. Isn't that amazing? So this is taking place, if you look, remember, at the horizontal level in a archetype of an astrological chart, an astrological mandala, looking at Aries as a springtime balance and Libra as the fall balance. So as we enter into this relationship with self, we start learning how we can identify with who we are. We go through a process of self-identification. So this axis, if it's very pronounced in our mandala of consciousness, we asked for ourselves to understand through our identification of who we are, this question, who am I, our lives and our purpose. And if it's very pronounced on the other side, in Libra, on the other side of the horizontal axis, then we're looking at others. How can we identify with others? How can we see ourselves through others? There's another word I could have utilized, and that's this extraordinary word called acknowledgement. How can I acknowledge myself and acknowledge others? And I absolutely recommend pass one day, just one day, acknowledging yourself and acknowledging those around you, acknowledging life, acknowledging your situations, acknowledging every single experience that's come through, acknowledge it and seeing it and honoring it. This is this first act of Aries and Libra. And what does that awaken? It awakens an incredible energy and an opening of the heart, an incredible love. Just a simple exercise of acknowledgement. And it's giving us this quality of identification. Identificating with what? With creation, with the source of creation. So the next axe we're looking at is between Taurus and Scorpio. And in that, we're seeing that there's an outer manifestation of our power, and there is an inner one. And what's that awakening? It's awakening our ability to have sensations. Absolutely extraordinary. How can we sense things inwardly and outwardly? So for our outward sensations, this nature gives us the best example. Nature is constantly giving us the possibility to sense, utilize our five senses and awaken them. And through the conscious effort of our five senses, there's a power that develops within us. And the same thing on the inside. As we're sensing our inner realities, what's going on within us, there's a power that develops through these sensations. The next axe we're entering into is Gemini and Sagittarius. And so now we're working with knowledge, with wisdom, you see? And so through this, we have in that a visible knowledge, exploration, and we have an invisible one, something vast. So, for example, look at for a certain period of time, faraway lands, this exploration to discover, the new continent was a big deal. You see? They were invisible. We thought that if you went too far, you'd fall off the earth. Well, that now is visible. You see? But what's invisible now? Oh, now it's the exploration of Mars and the moon and. Yeah, but what is really invisible? Well, what's really invisible for human beings is their consciousness. Their consciousness they can't see. You see? It's invisible for our senses. Yet we're plunged within it, so we need to develop other senses in order for us to come in contact with it. So, in that, what are we working on? We're working on this extraordinary domain of connection. So, connection visibly and connecting invisibly. And so, the next axis through Cancer and Capricorn, we're looking at our position. Our position, whether it be social or intimate, you see? And they can be so different, so different. And if we look, we see this extraordinary difference between people that have an incredible social position, and in fact, their intimate one is so different. You see? So, what does that do? That gives us this gift of orientation. How do we orientate our lives? What direction do we move in? So, this is the gift of this axe. What is our compass? You see? Where do we direct ourselves? And for humanity, because it's been so important, this cross of necessity, what's been the most important? The most important has been our vocation and marriage. That's been the most important, you see? But what about our inner marriage? And what about our inner vocation? What is truly the work that we have here on earth? The outer activity is just the means in which we can do that with. Questions to ponder, you see. All this shows up in your mandala of consciousness. What I'm saying to you right now is absolutely what other astrologers in the science of astrologers, I'm just presenting it differently. I'm giving it a space within our soul journey. I feel I'm giving it a space in which this book has illustrated. It's looking at these three different qualities: our personal one, our collective one, and our planetary one. And now finally we enter into this axe that is so important for us right now. And that's this axe of Leo and Aquarius. So in that, we're looking at how do we express ourselves? What is it? And do we have two different ways we express ourselves: as a child, spontaneously, joyously, innocently, and we express ourselves as an adult, pondering, wisdom, with a different viewpoint of experiential reality. And what is the gift that this is giving us? Creation. We become creators. So can you imagine now that we're entering into an age of creation? We're entering into an age of expressivity. We're entering into an age when we can be a child and we can be an adult. And this is really, truly one of the major facets of the spiritual teaching of Omraam Mikhaël. People ask me, so what is this teaching? I've been in it for over 50 years. What can you answer to a question like that? I mean, he's given over, 5,000 lectures, 5,000 spontaneous lectures on every facet of human consciousness. And, you're asking it, but this would be one of the answers that we could give. How to be a child and an adult at the same time. And if you remember, this was one of the quotes that was sent out in the last class and that I read at the end, that this is the age of love and wisdom. So right now, in order to express ourselves correctly, or even to express ourselves correctly, it's a big word, express ourselves, our hearts need to be open. We need to have love. We can't express ourselves if our heart is closed. We separate, we withdraw. And as an adult in Aquarius, this expression becomes something that enables all others supporting their expression. And this is something new that's coming in for humanity. Of course, it's existed before, but in the present state of the evolution of humanity, this is almost non-existent on a collective level. In other words, are our actions, are our being, are our feelings, are our thoughts not only expressing what's good for ourselves, but are they also expressing for others? And so we enter into the next axe, this axe of Virgo Pisces, the axe that we're leaving. You see? Of course, we never really leave it. You understand, we're just putting this into a context. And here we enter into this service and completion. We allow things to complete themselves. And that service, what does that give? That service gives a sense of purpose. It gives us a feeling of contribution, this idea of service. And if you look at how things are happening now on our economic material world, we're leaving this period of production, we're entering into a period of service orientation. Yet it's always within the same context of duality. So yet this is showing something that's extremely important that the age of Pisces has given us. This development of serving and allowing things to come into completion and feeling what that's like. Feeling what it's like to reintegrate into this divine ocean of love. And in this sense of service, it's giving us the ability to put things in order, to recognize order. In other words, when we're talking about order, we're talking about an order on a creation level, not the order of how human beings are doing this for their own proper benefit, but in order how things relate to one another, how nature has done things. So this is the gift of Virgo. She gives us the gift of order. And in that order, there's this opposite quality of chaos, of how do things break apart and reintegrate into creation, because this is what was written in the books. Oh, we emerged from chaos. We emerged from something that didn't have this order, a different type of order. So these are the 6 axes of destiny in which we can look at, we can ponder, we can go more deeply into, and we can see how the planetary resonances work with them. All this is done. So sometimes people ask me, well, how do you know? How do you know? Well, what I've done was I've developed this quality of feeling into this. So yes, I have a knowledge. I have a wisdom. I understand. I've studied this, so I know this. I don't have to look at all this. So I needed to familiarize myself with it. Why? Because I wanted to. I understood that this was extraordinary for me to understand the universe and myself, the keys. I didn't need the title of this book to push me into that. I knew it. So it's a gift I'm bringing in from another lifetime, obviously. So I put energy into it. And now with this energy of it, and I still do, you're kidding. Wow. Yay. We can't stop the progress of time. It advances and advances. So I added the feeling. I feel into the energies present. And then what do I do? I ask the soul destiny, what are you communicating? So I encourage you to do the same. Study a bit, understand there's a lot of information in this book. If this book doesn't answer your questions, there's a lot of information on the internet. And if that still doesn't answer your questions, you can always contact me. A person in this class asked me an extraordinary question about the differences between Western and Vedic astrology, these difference of approaches. And what are the energies of Aquarius in that? So I did my best to give her a certain answer. I don't want to in my answers, I'm not defining something. I try to open up doors and respond to the soul that's asking the question. So if I'm found in a mandala consciousness with someone outside of myself, this is what I do. I ask, okay, could you please tell me what's going on? Could you please explain to me what I need to see, what I need to understand, what I need to feel? I ask that question. I become a child. So in that child state of quality, since my mind is an adult, my mind receives answers. It can process the answers coming from an invisible reality. So now we're into, once again, Gemini Sagittarius. And put it, communicated, Gemini communication, connect to it, and communicate it to others. Okay, so now we're entering into the science of triangles. Okay, Omraam Mikhaël Aïvanhov in the book spends a great deal of energy on that. And this is extraordinary because we enter in to this science of dharma and karma. And I mentioned, I think 2 weeks ago, and I mentioned a little bit last week, that this idea that dharma and karma are adversaries once again, that they're fighting against each other, that one is good and one is evil, is ridiculous. And when we see the insanity of that, the absolute absurdity of that thought form, we can only break out in laughter. How many thought forms and how many feelings that we've nurtured based upon that. And why? Because that's what we were brought up into. We were brought up into, but that age is falling apart. So within these triangles of fire and air, we see that there's a higher divine consciousness that's constantly working. You see that fire and air, light and air, let's just call fire light for the time being, it's above us. See, it's working above us, and it's huge, the immensity of it. So the dharma in our lives, in everyone's lives, is absolutely huge. Absolutely huge. It's just that we've focused and we've identified completely on our karmic energies. First of all, not willing to accept them. That takes a lot of energy because we chose them before being born. Trying to explain them, trying to contradict them, you see, when they just need to be lived. They're there to support us. And absolutely trying to battle them, trying to transform them, trying to bring them into our own personal desires and what we absolutely think is the best. And we'll enter into that when we look at the triangles of earth and water. And of course, when we're talking about these elements, we're not talking about the elements that physically are there. These are just resonances, but they have them all. They have them all. You see? So we have this higher divine consciousness. These are where this energy of dharma is found. And it's so abundant, it's extraordinary. Could I have the next diagram, please, Purnima? And now we're in the triangles of water and earth. Obviously, this is happening on a lower level, in other words, on our earth level. So we have earth and water that work together, just like light, fire, and air. They nourish each other. Well, water and earth, they do the same thing. They penetrate one another, you see? So this is where our subconscious and unconsciousness are found. Now we're in the domain of our karma. Karma is not a thing. It's within us. And in it is all these different lifetimes and patterns that we've developed that were necessary for a certain period. And most of them were necessary for this period of necessity, of survival, of instincts. And now we're entering into higher currents. So in this integration into matter, what is the genesis, this story in the Judeo-Christian? What was the first action? Separating the two, the higher and lower. That's what we did. Well, Genesis isn't talking about the creation of all of creation integrating from the God-Goddess source. It's talking about our integration into physical form, you see? And this is what happened. There was a separation. A separation took place because it was necessary. It's necessary in physical form that we went through this, and we're still going through this. Will there be a period when it's not? Obviously, it will be. We already saw that. There are different ages. There's a different period of evolution, and this is where we're directing ourselves. But this is, for our human lifetimes, these are astronomical numbers. But still, those energies are there. So here is our subconscious and unconsciousness. And as we're able to bring these higher energies of Dharma in these karmic patterns that we all have, then little by little we can identify them. We can see where they're at. And we can see the gifts that they're bringing us. So all these things that we're resisting, that we're fighting against, that are directing our lives, all our choices, and that we feel that sometimes they're unjust, that we're victims, or we're the perpetrators, or the other person is taking advantage. All these things are all just energies taking place within us in our proper subconscious and unconscious. Does that mean that there aren't things happening outside of ourselves that are horrible? Of course they are, but they're the result of that. That's the result. So as we start seeing and penetrating into these relationships on a collective and planetary level, we're going to see how can we bring these dharmic energies that are in an extraordinary profusion into the subconscious and unconsciousness. This is the primary work that all of humanity is in right now, is linking these two stars, Star of David or Flower of Life, together. And that creates the 12-sided figure that's absolutely extraordinary. That's what that creates. It creates something that's unbelievable. And we have access to all 12 portals. This is our work. Our work is being able to open up to the dharmic energies that we have within us, that's represented in our charts through the fire and air, and allow them to come into this triangle that represents our subconscious and unconsciousness of water and earth. So let's just look at this diagram, and I'm going to read from this the book, those who have several planets in the sign of Aquarius are particularly well prepared to pick up the new waves coming from the constellation. They are innovators and they are inventors. Aquarius is responsible for all the recent psychic and esoteric discoveries, especially for the new ideas of community and brotherhood. So I'm not inventing anything. Omraam Mikhaël is not the first one to say this. So these energies are coming to all of Earth. Community and brotherhood and sisterhood. That's extraordinary, isn't it? In this new age, everybody, so I love that word, everybody, it's all inclusive, everybody, not just one particular group, is going to have to take the idea of brotherhood and sisterhood and universality seriously and work to apply it. Seriously means Aquarius. You see? The love and passion to be in community. So, there's many people that talk to me about, I want to be so much in community. They feel that's what their hearts want. But are they willing to take that desire seriously? In other words, are they willing to put their energies into it? This is what I'm inviting, and this is your homework for this week. What is this passion that I have of community? And how am I putting it into action? What am I doing to create this current of universality within me and in the world? What is driving it in me? And how can I bring it into the world? So I'd like to read right now. The Piscean age was that of Christianity. The characteristics of the Christian religion, abnegation and sacrifice, are exactly those of Pisces. Before the Piscean age, it was the age of Aries, which we saw in the development of the religion of Moses, Judaic tradition. And before that again, the age of Taurus with the Egyptian and Babylonian religions. So we're seeing Omraam Mikhaël putting these large ages into extraordinary cultural developments. Well, we're in that now. With the coming of the Aquarius in its polar opposite Leo, a new age is dawning, that of true knowledge. A new age is dawning. So fill your hearts with that. A new age is dawning. So, I'd like to invite us into our mind's eye, into the most beautiful place that we know of in nature, in which we have a clear view of the horizon. And in our mind's eye, we're seeing that we've awoken while the stars are still out. And all of nature is fresh. It's beautiful, absolutely pure. And as we're on this path, walking up within this dawn that hasn't yet broken, you can still see the stars, but you can see your direction on how you can just see your footsteps. You're feeling this extraordinary nature, and you're going to this spot, this place that for you is absolutely a part of you. It's so beautiful. It's your place. And in that, you greet all the beings that are there around you. You recognize them, and you recognize that there is a new dawn that's happening, that a new day is beginning, that it's filled with potential. And you sit and you await this new dawn, and you feel this awakening. You feel this all of nature, this vibrance within you, on the outside of you. And little by little, you see the light starting to form on the horizon. It's huge. And everything awakens, and you're there, awaiting this first ray of this new dawn, this new age of Aquarius, in which all will live as one family. We'll all live in peace, in harmony. We'll all be in well-being, accomplishing our soul purpose for the well-being of our soul journey and evolution, and the well-being collectively of others in the entire planet. And as this first ray enters, we just allow this light to fill our beings, and we go, this is the new age of Aquarius. Mahalo, that means thank you. And I really wish that you all have just such a beautiful day and an exquisite time this week. And we get to see each other next week, in which we'll continue these triangles of Dharma and Karma and enter them into the mysteries of what this new age of Aquarius is bringing us. So may God bless you all. Aloha.